Okay, I've started streaming and recording. Um, Looks like we are live. And I can see the chat. Uh, Now um, let's see. I'm going to post this link. Oh, the furnace just came on really loud. Oh, well. Post this link here. Now, if you want to join in on the pub and you do not know how to um, go to do that, I'm going to post a link in the chat, and you can. It will show you how to contact me, and then I will. Um, where's that? Yeah, here it is. And hopefully it'll let me edit this because it needs to be edited. Um, let's see. Okay, follow that link. It tells you how to contact me, and you can join the chat. You can join the pub on Zoom uh, within a few seconds of that. The Zoom meeting is underway now. Oh, we have a participant. Who is it? Uh, let's see. Do I need to let somebody in? Uh, hmm. Somebody's in the waiting room and I don't know how to get them out. Let's see. I see a second participant, but I don't know. Oh, there it is. Oh, okay. There we are. Come on in. Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Isiah, is that right?
Isaiah.
Isiah. Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Isiah?
I'm Midwest originally. I live in New Jersey now.
Oh, okay. I've lived in New Jersey. So, um,
Yeah.
great. Well, welcome to the pub. You're the first participant other than myself. We are actually streaming live right now.
Oh,
Um,
hi,
and I
Internet.
and I think there may be one or two people watching so far. There may be more soon. Um, and if anybody is watching and wants to um, ask a question or make a comment, uh, just just go in on the chat on the live chat and I'll see that and I can uh, field that question. And so, um, since Isaiah is new to the pub, tell us a little bit about yourself. You live in New Jersey now, right?
Yeah, I moved after graduation, the tri-state area. It's about 10 years ago now, 11 actually coming up.
Mm-hmm.
An automation engineer. I work for a metal fabricating company. Bit of a space guy. I found your podcast about a month and a half ago, and I kind of listened to it on the way back and forth from work. Um, so it was
Right.
been pretty interesting stuff you guys talk about.
Yeah. We usually, I mean, what we do in the pubs, we just kick stuff around. Could be anything you want to talk about. Anybody can join. The only because of Zoom security issues, we do ask that they come ask for the link, and I'll send them the
Right.
invitation. But it could be anybody. I don't. Uh, and we may see uh, Nick Nielsen a little bit later. He's out on the West Coast, so for him it's only 2 o'clock there. So he runs a business, so Saturdays are not all his own. Um, so the there's been a lot going on lately, and we can talk about. And there's also just people like just to kick things around. I'm hoping Rock Howard shows up. I want to ask him about what went on in Texas last week. uh, that sounded pretty wild. I'm surprised more people didn't die, but I had relatives who were posting on Facebook, "We're out of power, and it's 4 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and we haven't had power in 12 hours, and everybody's freezing." Uh, People scrambled hard to stay, keep from freezing to death. It was,
Yeah, it's pretty.
yeah, yeah. But fortunately, everybody I know came through fine. But a lot of them were just they got every blanket in the house. They huddled everybody underneath them. And they just waited for the power to come back on. Uh,
Yeah.
it's but it's and it sometimes it would be out for like 16 hours or something, a really long time. Um, and so they've got some folks down there have some splaining to do. Also, by the way, if anybody else has questions, the Discord questions channel is open, and um, I know you probably can't see this, but just go to Discord. I don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to leave that. Um, okay, well, so did you listen to some of the more recent episodes on the podcast yet?
On WoW or Unseen?
Well, either one. Well, Unseen
Or,
hasn't been up for 2.5 years.
oh, I wasn't aware. It's
Yeah.
actually kind of funny. My podcast viewer doesn't have Unseen. It has WoW. So I
Yeah, well,
gotta.
we took the Unseen RSS feed down about 6 months ago.
Oh, that's probably why. And
Yeah,
I found it about a month and a half.
yeah. Well, Libsyn was charging me to keep it up, so I
Oh,
left it
really?
up for over a year because people were still downloading old episodes. But then the downloads started to fade, and I figured, well, okay, it's time to stop paying this money to Libsyn, $60 a year just to keep the feed going. So I moved everything to YouTube.
Hmm.
So all the episodes are on YouTube, uh, and as far as I know, they'll be there in perpetuity, or at least as long as YouTube is there, exists. But the uh, the my webcam is kind of okay. They'll be there. But the WoW signal, we take long breaks. Um,
Hmm.
because I'm a parent of teenagers, and uh, I work full time, and um, other people do contribute, but it's mostly me that makes it happen. So most of the recent ideas for episodes have been Daniela's.
Yeah.
Um, she she'll say, I'm going to review this person and that person. And sometimes it's somebody I would never even thought of, but quite often it's very interesting. Like the guy that's working on a movement in zero G, a circus performer slash physicist,
Yeah. I actually just heard that one today.
Adam Diaper. Yeah, he's a very unusual combination of talents and credentials,
Yeah.
And he, and I would never would even thought I didn't even ever heard of him, and I would never have thought to bring him on the show, but Daniela did, and so we had him on. And it was fun to talk to him. Um, and this latest guy, Thomas Moynihan, uh, Danielle had read one of his books, which is the Spinal Catastrophe, and which I have to admit I haven't read, and uh, and he just had a new book out called X Risk, and I thought, and it's not so much about, oh my God, we're all going to die, what can we do about it? It's more like,
Hmm.
what's this idea of existential risk?
Yeah.
Where did it come from? And what's its history? And
Yeah. He was the professor of. I mean, I'm going to butcher this term. It was basically he researched the origin of ideas, right?
yeah, he's a intellectual historian, is what he calls himself.
Intellect. Yeah, that
Now
was
he
the
just got
term.
his PhD last year, so
Oh, it's good.
he's working at the not Harvard, Oxford. Uh, uh, they have an institute there that and answers that's about future. The future. I think they call it the Future of Humanity Institute, and
Okay.
he's he works there, uh, and he wrote this book called Extras. Again, that was Daniela's idea, and I never would have thought to interview him. Uh, Now, when Wade Roush came up with his book Extraterrestrials, I thought, well, okay, that's an obvious one for us. It's a good book. Um, it doesn't. Uh, I wouldn't say it introduces a whole lot of new ideas, but that was the point of the book, was to kind of summarize what we know about extraterrestrials, what we don't know about extraterrestrials, and which is a lot more than we know, and then bring that together into one place with some of the best thinking from different people. And he did that. And it was an MIT book, uh, but that's been our most popular one, and I think that's because Wade has his own podcast, uh, which is a pretty good podcast, and he promoted that his appearance on that a bit, so we got downloads from that. Um, and yeah, I've actually subscribed to his pod. What's it called? I can't remember. It's something um, like most amateur podcasters. He goes through surges and then backs off, and like I
Yeah.
do.
It's one of those things on my to-do list one day to do my own podcast. I
Yeah,
don't know if it'll ever happen.
it's what does he call that thing? It's not the Anatomy of Next. That's a different one, right? Yeah. Oh, I gotta let Ciro in. Sorry, Ciro. Hold on. Did I? Rock Howard. Rock Howard. Oh, he's a guy from Texas. Rock, can you hear us? I'm trying to remember what Wade's podcast is called. Uh, it's not the Totally Football Show. Anyway, I'll get. It'll occur to me soon. Um, Rock, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Uh, yes, I can. A little bit weak, but have you thought out yet?
Yeah, that should be better. Hopefully that's a little better.
Hey, we have a new guy here, Isiah. Say hello to
Yeah.
Isiah.
Hi.
It's Chiro
Hey, Yashay, how are you?
and
Well,
Rock, who are regulars on
Hey,
the club.
Rock, how's it going?
I say,
uh,
Now, Rock, I want to hear your story about last week.
okay,
I
all right.
heard it was pretty interesting. And
Sure. Let me,
still falling out.
I'm a little having trouble with my app here. Just a second.
Oh,
I'm surprised you could still hear me.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
I can't find the place to turn on video, so we'll just go with the audio. All
Yeah.
right. So the cold weather hit Austin a couple days before Valentine's Day. It started getting cold, and we saw these predictions that it was going to get possibly down into the single digits. And we sort of started preparing for it. We already had a pretty good pantry of, food, water, what have you, and other supplies. And then we started hearing these reports of people losing their power and water mains breaking and so forth as the first really cold night happened. And as it turned out, I have four different sisters living in different places in Austin, and all of them had power outages at some point, and we did not. We were doing just fine. And so I was spending a fair amount of time just helping coordinate with my sisters. One of them actually eventually had to move to a friend's house. The others, it worked out okay. They were able to endure, but some of them had to go for like a day and a half, up to a day and a half without power. One of them didn't have water for 2 days, but only lost power for a few hours. So it was looking like all my sisters were getting squared away. And then on the morning of, let's see, that would be Sunday morning at about 7 a.m., we lost our power. And as it turned out, our power was out for 68 hours, which was far
Wow.
worse than any of my sisters had to endure. So we were lucky at first, but then got very unlucky at the end. We could tell based on it looked like using the neighborhood app that all of 78757, my zip code, was hit. And we could tell our backyard neighbors were all out as well. So we knew it wasn't just our house. And besides, we were able to report the outage, and the energy company confirmed that they knew about an outage that affected our area. So we just continued weather stripping the house. Turns out bubble wrap is a really good thing for because you can just put it on your panes of glass and it sticks, and it does a pretty good job. So a lot of bubble wrap went up, a lot of extra sheets and blankets and stuff got hung from windows and doors and what have you. We added in a bunch of weather stripping that we should have added years ago but didn't, but we went ahead and did it. So we stayed pretty busy just cold proofing the house. We managed to keep it in the mid 50s in the house for a good while. And then the next last night it managed to get down to about 50, which still we couldn't see our breath, so we were still not worried about it. And we were able to heat up some food just using some candles and stuff. So it wasn't like super hot, but we had candles and we had ability to at least warm up some food. But then we got the boil water notice from the city. So now we can't use the water without boiling it. And we didn't really have any setup to boil water anyway. So because our stove is electric. So
Oh.
so we were in, but the good news is we had about 7 or 8 gallons of distilled water in jugs. So we were never really in serious difficulty, but it was like we were, some of our food was starting to go bad. We had to toss it. And and then the last night and day, it did get below 50 in the house. It got down to about 48. We could see our breath. It was getting pretty bad. But fortunately, at that point, the weather was supposed to be above freezing the next day with sun, and that in fact did happen. And so we were able to warm ourselves a little bit just from staying near the windows that were sunny.
Hmm.
And we also got my sister had a friend who made us some hot red beans and rice and sent us a hot thermos of water. That was kind of a gift from God. And
Wow.
then the next day it got above freezing and got into the 50s, in fact, and kind of the crisis was over in that regard. But and only then did the electricity come back. It came back at 3 in the morning the following night. So it was an adventure, but it was also a little boring because I couldn't, fortunately, I was playing music. It was I could do that. I could do some reading. My Kindle eventually did run out of juice, but I did a fair amount of reading, and I don't recommend anybody. Now, in the aftermath, I found out that we were correct that our little section of our neighborhood, our immediate neighbors and our backyard neighbors all lost energy. But it turned out our neighbors across the street only lost energy for like 8 hours total.
Hmm.
And if I had known that, we could have walked across the street through the snow and warmed ourselves up. It was just like,
So it was
oh
block by block, basically.
right. It was like
Wow.
literally had to walk like 100 feet, through the snow, and we would be able to warm up. That would have been nice to know, but our house was so weather stripped that we couldn't actually even see out the windows very well. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is that the lowest temperatures to your memory that you've ever experienced in the area over there, Rock?
The last really bad one was in '89, and it was kind of comparable, but it didn't have the snow. So you could still, I remember it was comparably slow, comparably cold, but I still went to work.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, because there was no problems with the roads really.
Right.
So it was the combination of this being snowbound plus the cold that was the problem. Of course, this ridiculousness with the grid not being properly weathered, and like every energy source that was supposed to be there ended up being deprecated to some degree by the lack of properly weathered facilities. So you name it, they all suffered. And then on top of that, the planning, the guys charged with planning for these kind of situations, they had estimated that the worst winter storm would be about half as bad as what we just experienced. So they were just dreadfully off in their estimates. At half as bad as what we experienced, the grid would have been like comparable to like the worst summer day in terms of usage. Although it would have been that way for a number of days and not hours like it is in the summer. It's usually just peaks out for a few hours on a few really hot days. So part of the problem was it was so cold for several days that it was just way more energy that than they had anticipated. And then on top of that, they lost, half of their nuclear, like big fraction of their gas. Some of the wind actually performed better than they had projected through this whole thing. It's kind of funny that a lot of the politicians are blaming the wind when actually the wind performed pretty well, actually. Yeah, but it was just a canard. It was, yeah, it was. It's true they weren't weatherized like they should have been, but and of course there was there were some incidents in 2011 and 2014 in selected portions of the state. In those areas, like El Paso had a really bad episode in 2011. So they did weatherize, and they're hooked up to the national grid. So they got through this thing just fine. It was the portion of the state that was not hooked up to the national grid that suffered. And they did actually, after those storms in 2011 and 2014, they beefed up the legislation to talk about weatherizing, but they made it optional. They just didn't make it mandatory. They said this, it's just totally aspirational to weatherize your facilities, and nobody bothered. So, yeah. Yeah.
Paul,
So
check
about-
the Paul, check the waiting room. Sam says that he's in the waiting room. Yeah, he says he's in the waiting room. Hey. You made him wait for a while. Yeah. I was trying to warn you. You didn't see my chat. Hey, Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, how's it going?
Or I mean,
I can imagine.
Yeah, I
Winter-
think that's it. Unless there are questions, I'm done.
winter adventures.
Right.
Where are you at?
Hurricane,
I say, yeah, where are you?
Me?
Yes.
I live in North Jersey.
North Jersey?
Mhm.
What part? Bergen County? No.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Passaic.
I got some went visit that area many years ago. How's
Nice
the
here.
weather over there now?
Hmm?
How's the weather in those part of the country right now? Is it pretty
Oh,
warm?
it's pleasant. It's warming up. We had a lot of snow 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But it's a pretty comfortable day now. So we
Kind
can
of
walk around
normal
with a sweat.
temperature for this time of year.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'm
this
across
is-
the river in Manhattan. It was about 50 today here, so
Oh yeah? Oh, you Manhattan, Sam?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that. What about Maryland, Paul? How's the situation over there? Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing the only good thing about having highs on the driveway is that you can get a lot of success with the YouTube videos. You've seen all the
Yeah.
YouTube videos of people sleeping on the ice. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got all these people really get amused by watching other people misery, falling and everything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you can't compare. I guess southern latitudes that we can't. Well, we get our cold spells here. If you want to. Oh, we get down to the 30s, sometimes even the upper 20s, but it's very rare and it's very short lived. If ever. We do get December, January, even February. But by the time we get to March, it's pretty much all over, as far as the cold weather is concerned. So yeah.
I don't know how bad Houston got hit, but I've sent a few chemical stuff there in Houston, and it amazed me whenever I'd go there and help install it, how little they have to deal with the snow in
Right.
terms of how the designs are totally different.
Mhm.
Pipes are not insulated. Everything's outdoors. It just there's no like plan to shovel snow the way the routes were planned out. I
Are
thought
you a
that
truck driver? Is it?
no,
What do you do?
I'm an automation engineer.
Nice. Well, so no, I didn't. And so you said you transported chemical down here.
No, we chemical factories they're kind of like Legos actually. You
Right.
buy a process and it's called a skid, and then it's built and then it's sent to the facility and it's put
Okay.
into place.
That's interesting.
And sometimes when I would design one, my previous employer,
Yeah.
I would go follow it down there and help integrate it into the whole factory.
Okay.
So it was interesting going down there because Houston's got a lot of chemical plants, and I thought they just do things differently because that warm climate.
So this is where you're specializing in the engineering of chemical plants
Uh,
or
I'm
automation of mechanism or automation
yeah,
process?
I mean, I do
process-
automation. I used to be into chemical.
Industrial process kind of thing?
Hmm?
Industrial process?
Yeah, basically just you look at there's usually not one person doesn't design everything. There's one person who
Sure.
has a
Of course.
general metal and
Yeah,
the pneumatics and everything else, and there's someone like me who just kind of looks at it. It's like spinal cord and brain versus body. I'm kind of like the spinal cord and brain,
Yeah.
trying to
No,
figure
no,
out how to move everything around
Yeah.
to get things to work.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Manufacturing processes and stuff like
Yeah.
that, for instance.
Yeah, I used to be in waste chemical stuff before the virus hit. I was in the field all the time, helping out with the stuff. We'd handle the pollution and waste and all these different ways.
Okay.
And then after the virus hit, my field work kind of dried up, and
Mhm.
so I didn't really want to be a desk worker. So I took a job with a large metal manufacturer, metal products. So I designed the in-house machinery.
Okay,
that,
interesting. Yeah. Sam, you're in academia, right? Aren't you?
No, I
Are
work
you in
in
academia
finance.
anymore?
Finance.
You're on your own right now?
No, I
you-
work for a hedge fund.
Oh, I'm sorry. I might have misunderstood in the past. I thought you were in
I
academia.
was in academia before.
Oh, you were? Okay. Okay, I wasn't wrong then. I wasn't completely
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Anyway, right now. Okay. Right. It's interesting. Yeah, it was what do you think about Paul, what do you think about the Mars article on the Atlantic by the one that is it's caused a little bit of a buzz that I was referring to? Yeah. Right.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen this article. What's the gist? Don't bother.
The gist of the article is kind of I think is more directed towards the idol what's the word the idolizing of Elon Musk, in my personal opinion, because really the whole thing is around the fact that there's this there's a blind followership of Elon Musk, but it's kind of debatable what his philosophy, what his real intent for colonization of Mars is. And the argument in the article is that Elon Musk idea of or not idea but purpose or scope of colonizing the red planet is based on the wrong premises, number one, and number two, doesn't take into account the fact that here on Earth we have a lot of challenges from the societal and human relationship perspective, that where if you take these challenges and this aberration and you put them into an environment that is already challenging for physical reasons, of course, and then you put those few early people, pioneer communities, and you put them there as humans with their tendencies of xenophobia and ethnocentrism and all the type of things that we have to deal with on Earth, you're going to have a disaster because you haven't been you haven't addressed those things before colonizing, and now you find yourself into a planet that's already challenging in the first place, and you got all these people that are going to start coming out with their idiosyncrasies and human weaknesses and you're going to have a big problem now. So that's kind of one of the things, I guess,
Like Red Mars.
Well, I mean,
think it's just not very convincing. Like, you could look at the Antarctic research stations are like probably a paragon of human cooperation, and you don't see a lot of like strife.
yeah. Well, I guess I think that if you have a certain group, this is my assessment, a very brainstorming kind of thing. I think that if you take a group of people that is fairly trained, fairly prepared on what to expect, I guess, then you got a group of people that is already kind of more adapt to be able to deal with these things, right? With these problems, with this personal relationship, when you have to deal with a few groups of people in small confined environments for a long period of times. But when you start introducing the element of the less trained, the more, casual, everyday Joe, and you start putting him into a new type of environment, you're like, a new planet, away from Earth, then you're going to have situations where you're going to have more and more untrained, I guess, individuals. And then all bets are off as far as what's going to happen and what are their worst behavior going to come out. And then you find yourself.
Yeah,
in a place
seems
where
likely to me,
less-
but like, is it a deal breaker? I guess like if you compare it to jobs like working on an oil rig or on a deep sea
sure.
fishing vessel, like it's easier to wash out, right? You can just go back to port. You maybe have to be out in that environment a couple months longer than you'd want to be, but it's maybe wouldn't jeopardize the entire mission.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that and one of the things is that the argument is should we not, the argument of the article is, should we not be more concerned before investing all these resources, human resources and financial resources, before investing so many of these resources for that purpose? Shouldn't we meaning Elon Musk, I guess, shouldn't we be worried about? Well, we as humans, yeah, right, but it's a philosophical argument, that some people might, some people, there's a point to it. You cannot argue that you want to have humanity. Everybody would like to have humanity improve, right? Nobody, even the person that wants to, enhance, that wants to promote space exploration is not gonna want to have a bad Earth with bad humans. Nobody wants bad humans, right? But the question is, what is the threshold of that compromise? Is it okay if you want to continue the investment into the enterprise of space exploration and so on and so forth and colonization, or should we put that more into a perspective, right? And think about addressing some of the Earth things first before we go in too far.
But also, it's like, it's Elon's money. He can do what he wants with it, right? Unless there's some sort of moral hazard, like, he's implicitly relying on a backstop. NASA's gonna come rescue the guys if they all freak out.
Right.
Possible, but
cooperation. Yeah.
Well,
well, they cooperate with NASA, obviously, for intelligence and that sort of thing. Obviously, NASA's got the decades of experience. So,
I think this is a little bit Western culture centric, because if we don't do it, the Chinese can just do it. And exactly. And so this is not a question of should we do it or not. This is a question of who should do it. And I would say if somebody has to do it, then probably we should do it. Now, personally, I'm not for like trying to set up shop on yet another gravity well. My preference would be to focus on orbiting
stations.
You're on Team Bezos.
Yeah, I guess
Team
I'm
O'Neill.
on Team Bezos.
Team O'Neill.
Team O'Neill. I will be honest. I kind of prefer them orbiting around something besides Earth, because I think that's kind of cool. So whether it be the moon or Ceres or something like that. So I'm not just stuck on orbiting around the Earth. But yeah, I think orbiting platforms are more interesting to me because I think it's just economically, I think it would work out better. That's just my opinion.
Rock, I was actually I saw an article a little while ago about a guy who was making carbon nanotubes out of solar reflectors instead of like regular just he was just focusing sunlight to make carbon nanotubes.
Mhm.
So I kind of got bored. I'm like, okay, well, if you had a space station, you positioned it so you had 24-hour sunlight, and you were making carbon nanotubes that way. You're not converting it to electricity. You could just convert it. You're just focusing it straight onto it. How much would this work out in terms of profit and loss? I kind of got the numbers to actually barely be profitable. I was just playing with it. I'm like, okay, this is it's about $150 per kilogram. You're going down the gravity well. As the Starship's estimated price is this per kilogram. It wouldn't be very profitable though. But it was kind of an interesting that I thought it was actually
But if you want to
point.
use the nanotubes up there, like
Hmm?
if the application for the carbon nanotubes is in orbit, like for
Yeah,
the
or maybe
space
that'd be
elevator,
better.
then that would increase the profitability probably. But
Yeah, but I thought that I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought like, okay, well, you have continuous sunlight. Could you actually use that for something besides just beaming the energy down? So kind of going with
That reminds me, I sunk last month. I managed to sink $100 into a company called Orbital Assembly, and their whole thing is creating the machines that can create orbiting platforms.
Mhm.
And their target machine that they want to build is a large spinning habitat that would accommodate several hundred people, like 200 or 300, 400 people at, I think, lunar gravity when it spins. And one side of it would be always facing the sun, and the other side would be away. So it would actually be a place where if they succeed in making this habitat, you could take your idea and have a place to actually try to execute it.
Actually, they're going to have concentric gravity gradients. They're going to have the lunar gravity on one, on one of the circles. I forgot which is the inside or the outside, depending on what and then one's going to have Mars gravity. They're going to
okay. They had a plan. They had a plan like that. Their current plan is that the outside ring would be 1/6, i.e., lunar gravity.
Lunar.
And they're claiming the Coriolis effect on that wouldn't be too bad, and it would be quite livable. That's kind of the fly in the ointment.
Are they still planning on doing the concentric? Like one of the circles is going to be Mars, or they're just going to be thinking about doing lunar simulate lunar gravity?
I'm just, they actually have two different structures they're going to build, so I might be confused about that. So
yeah. I thought so too. They had a initial prototype that they were working on, and then they had another one, a new one. I haven't looked into it more recently, but I did look into it a few months ago. It's an interesting, at least intriguing, I guess.
Oh yeah, I would. There was no way though. I'm putting more than $100 into it because it's just such a.
How did you? What was the $100? Like they have a crowdfunding sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a outfit called Net Capital that helps private companies do basically crowdfunding, which is legal as long as you don't raise more than $1 million a year. So that's what they did. They just raised $1 million.
You're not really investing, right? You're just supporting the project.
No, I'm just supporting.
You're not getting any equity in the company.
No, I have equity. I have a little bit of equity with that $100. It's a legitimate investment. I just don't have any I don't ascribe any value to that particular investment.
I'm just looking at their site. Are they going to use that Bigelow in Texas? Are they going to use it for their thing or no?
No, Bigelow is defunct as far as I know. I don't know who owns those assets. But no, they're not using.
No, I don't think that they were using Bigelow. They're doing their own thing. They're doing their own thing, basically.
Yep. They're all about the rotating framework, and their technology their technology is the machine that extrudes the and basically, you know, they have this unit that goes up that can fit inside of a starship and get it up there, and then create the big ring and manufacture it in space. That's their technology.
Good.
So they still got to
There's a lot
prove it
of,
can work, but you know, it's
they got a
interesting.
lot of YouTube videos out there, and of course they got their website with some of the, you know, with they explain what they're doing and so on and so forth. But there's also a number of YouTube videos that you can find out more about their design ideas and what they're planning on doing. And I think that there was some milestone happening this month. Well, I don't know if there was some sort of presentation that they were going to be doing, or they were going to.
Yeah, the presentation that they did, which I watched.
Yeah.
That was their launch, so that to attract the investors. And
okay, that's what it was.
It worked pretty well. They managed to get their $1 million within a couple of weeks. So that was nice.
That's nice. Okay. Yeah.
Funny
okay.
how like essential the Starship is to a lot of these business plans. You know, if you don't get the launch cost down,
yeah,
then so fingers crossed that it works. Yeah.
You're talking about SpaceX with the Starship? Yeah. Yep. The SN10. They did this. They did static. Well, they were supposed to do the other with the SN9, and then the SN9. We know what happened to it, right? Well, we know what happened to what used to happen with the early you know, NASA, you know, the space program. How many rockets used to blow up and everything? I mean, you got full. Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. Hmm.
Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you this. If you look where that vehicle goes through the last minute before landing, I wouldn't want to ever be on aboard that thing. Even if it worked perfectly, I wouldn't want to be on it.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, right now the reliability is, I mean, if you're just looking from a pure statistical standpoint, the reliability is very, very low right now, obviously. But I mean, I prefer a dive hardware, but yeah, I'm a little bit surprised because you know, the Raptor engines actually they're well, I don't know, these are probably not the same Raptor engine they fly on the Falcons, so I'm not sure.
Well, I think.
Oh, the Raptors are not even. Oh, so there was the first time that Raptor. Oh, completely new. Okay, yeah, I was wrong about that.
I think they learned their lesson, and next time they'll fire all three and then throttle one back or turn it off. So the main thing we're testing on the last couple flights was the actual dynamics of getting back through the atmosphere.
Yeah,
and that actually worked amazingly well.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta admit, looking at it, I wouldn't have expected they worked as well as they did.
Oh, even the orientation.
Now, of course,
was,
this is ultimately for landing on Mars more than the Earth. So it's hard to say that, you know, landing on Mars is a really different trip than landing on the Earth.
Yeah.
I guess you know, if you're going to land on the moon, the flaps don't matter, right? There's no atmosphere.
No atmosphere at all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it happens at all.
Yeah, you're not going to have any kind of atmospheric drag that you can leverage. If you don't have any atmosphere, you're not going to have any atmospheric drag.
That's
to
some.
leverage.
I saw. I was watching, wondering about this, and I saw some people talking about it. Was how is it going to land on the moon in terms of like height? It's you see it land. It lands on these flat surfaces, and oh, they have something. Okay. So how does it actually land though on this?
No, he's talking about actually the rocket itself. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
actual vehicle. He's talking about the vehicle. Yeah, these are what he's talking about. Well, you're probably going to have to be some sort of a regulable thrust, right? You have to be able to go ahead and reduce the thrust. Incredible, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Why not? Why you think it's not practical though? Is it a fuel consumption? Is it a fuel? Is it a fuel issue or could be a fuel issue, right? Or is it just because of the actual intrinsic power of the engine? Right. Mm-hmm. So the technology is there, right? Obviously, if it was done with Apollo. Yeah. Hmm. The mark, though, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Why do you really want a starship-sized vehicle to land on the moon, as opposed to like using something dragon-sized to shuttle back and forth from lunar orbit to the surface? Oh no, yeah, to get to lunar injection orbit. I guess like you can get.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but
Those
then you
guys were
have
pretty smart.
yeah, those are that's two different spacecraft though.
And so the
Because
cargo.
the landing system and the ascent system are two different systems. Mhm. You can't really do that. Mhm. Right. Mhm.
I guess they actually thought pretty hard about the two vehicle approach for Mars too, right? The Red Dragon approach, and they rejected it. They decided it's a shitty idea for some reason. Yeah.
I think
Right, but
a
for the moon,
criti-
that's less of a big deal, right? But
I think a critical thing for the moon, and I think in the medium term, but clearly not in the short term, but in the medium term, is to figure out a way to build landing pads. There's just going to be no way to deal with the dust problem without taking that into consideration. You could land in a deep crater, and that would help keep the dust at least within the crater walls to some degree.
Right.
Yep.
There's an
But
entire.
how much
there's a-
payload did Apollo lunar lander have? Like basically just those two guys and not much else. Oh, there's a rover as
Oh
well.
no,
right?
no,
So,
yeah,
was car-
it took a car up there. What are you talking about?
so it's a few
they had some
thousand,
cargo,
a couple
but
tons, right?
it was- yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, but it was relatively limited. I mean, for the
But it
purpose
might be
of the
enough to get some robots up there to start building the landing pad. So we should just do it.
well, to
Yeah.
the-
Right, but we don't know what the chemistry would be to make this. What is it? A concrete substitute? We don't even know the chemistry that would end up working. So
You don't know until you try, right?
well, yeah, but you understand this thing would have to survive brutal heat for 2 weeks, followed by brutal cold for 2 weeks. No, I'm talking about specifically the construction material for the pad would also
You're
have-
like getting a form of concrete that would actually cure it.
Yeah.
And you have to melt the water you're going to use to make the concrete.
well,
Right?
there's also 3D. I don't know if it's feasible, but 3D technology now. There's 3D technology right now that they're actually thinking about be able to convert for space construct for exoplanetary or extraterrestrial constructions, I suppose. They've been talking about using some sort of 3D technology to make manufacture some material of sort. Now I don't know if this would be applicable
Right.
for. Right. Well,
Was a
mhm.
I'm trying to
Sand, basically, right? I mean,
Yeah. There's actually
working on it
trying to
already.
find I'm trying
there's
to
actually a professor
If
called
this-
Dr. Phil Metzger. I don't know how you pronounce his name. He's at UCF, University of Central Florida, and he used to be part of the skunk work, Lockheed Martin skunk work. And he's dedicating a lot of studies, spending a lot of time doing studies about the ejecta that is generated by landing spacecrafts. He often talks about that, and what kind of things do we have to be concerned about to be able to land the different type of spacecrafts on a new planet with the type of landing surfaces challenges, whether it be lunar or Martian. He does a lot of very detailed work as far as trying to understand what are the the possible consequences, the damaging consequences to the spacecraft itself, and those sort of things.
The camera view of the dust plume for Perseverance was pretty impressive, actually.
Right.
I don't
yes.
remember if we had as good video. Was there any?
He's talked about that because he said that helped a lot understand the reaction of the material on the surface when there's an approaching thrust from a spacecraft.
Do you remember if there was any imagery like that for the Spirit and Opportunity?
I don't know. I do not.
No, this
No,
was
I
the
don't believe
first.
so.
I
I don't
remember
believe so. I don't think there was anything like that before.
I got to.
It was cool to see.
Yeah.
But from far away, so like
The sky crane.
Yeah. No.
they had some excuse. That
Well, yeah, but all of these cameras were kind of stock. They weren't specially built for science. They were just, stock technology, and they got it.
NASA is becoming almost more PR than science.
glue some GoPros on there. Yeah, that's what I heard was that they're not even going to keep them on, right? They're useless now. They're just dead.
Huh. What, so is there any scientific value that came out of them at all? Mhm. Yeah, I've seen some of those. Coffee table, magazine. Mhm. Oh yeah. So that. Right. Was it during one of the assists? Was it during one of the gravity assists? I think.
It's not a assist though, right?
What did you say? Yeah. What did you say, Isiah?
I thought it wasn't actually a gravity assist, the one that's going to the sun.
The one. No, he's talking about the picture itself. Whether it was
No,
taken during.
the probe that's going close to the sun, right?
Yeah, he's using Venus.
I
Venus.
might be remembering it wrong, but I heard one.
Yes. Yes, they are. Yeah. I think two or three, or even 2 or 3 a minimum.
Much.
You're
Right, they're bleeding off energy.
Yeah, I heard something from the. I'll look it up, but I heard something. I heard a statement from the mission, one of the mission planners saying it wasn't actually a gravity assist. She clarified it in some way. Sorry, I'm kind of half remembering this.
No, unless you're referring to some other past. Are you talking about the Parker solar probe, or are you thinking about another?
Yeah, Parker.
Yeah, the Parker does have used Venus assists.
I'm sorry. I got wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. In our solar system, it's very, very difficult to achieve those orbital, configuration. Very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with the what was the Voyager, right? Voyager 1. Use
Right,
both
right.
of them. Use assists.
Yeah.
They use both, two assists, right? One Jupiter and only Jupiter, no, and Saturn. That's right. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking it's it's kind of interesting. They talking about space manufacturing and versus probes. I'm always been hesitant the idea that we're going to manufacture things in space without people. Uh, Trying to make an analogy between that and space probes. I never really see that. Like, you think about something like an imager or something. It's just a camera taking pictures. It's a relatively static thing sensing something versus like you're gonna build a landing strip on the moon by robots. You're interacting with the environment, and
Yeah, it might be smarter to send a guy with a bulldozer.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do this. I do this for a living. It's just when something is physically moving around, it's just a totally different ball game than a camera that just sits there for 20 years just recording.
The real thing is that all these robotic systems, they operate so slowly, out of engineering necessity, I think, right?
Yeah,
Like for the rovers on Mars, it's like fine, it's drill some holes, take some rock samples, but like if you're actually trying to get something built, it might be very impractical to do it robotically. I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Well,
Oh,
I remember the astronauts had a lot of trouble drilling in the moon too. So humans are kind of encumbered too when they have to carry their environment with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flying drones.
Yeah. Hmm.
mhm.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
One thing that you had hinted to a little moment ago was about I don't know if it was you or someone else that mentioned how the United States space program is getting very how can I put it? We're getting very enthralled into all the ethical and some other questions, which yeah, they are important. Nonetheless, they do not necessarily affect the practical engineering and everything. And we're gonna get surpassed if we haven't been surpassed already. We meaning the United States by China. China is advancing leaps and bounds in space exploration. I mean, they are what in the process of setting up a space station now, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken,
Well,
right?
but
They are
I mean,
advanced.
their heavy launcher. I don't know. The Long March. calling it in English.
The Long March is what you're.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a little thing that I was reading about, and it kind of set me off. Was that their planned launch date for that is 9 years from now? It was I don't know. That just it was like 9 years to get a single rocket into space, and it's potentially partially reusable. Well, SLS is a
Probably took
government
longer
work
than the
project.
first time around, right?
Hmm.
Good. But people- Oh yeah.
Anybody might become NASA administrator, Nelson.
Shelby. Yeah. Yes, Sunseal, yeah. Well, they convinced Trump to get the new space command headquarters over there at the arsenal, at the Redstone Arsenal. We were supposed to get it down here. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What's the main what is the main reason I that the main source of savings of SpaceX versus manufacture? Is that a matter of manufacturing processes or materials or a combination of everything where SpaceX can produce vehicles at such cheaper costs than the NASA or NASA contract, I should say?
I think it's their engineering culture is just radically different than anyone else's.
But it can't be just that. I mean, there's got to be something in right. You're right. Well, that's, mhm.
Yeah.
You're talking about the finalized Starlink, or you're talking about the heavy, the super heavy.
The booster stage, yeah. But on the cost side, I think they have something about their engine production process. Like I think they've taken some ideas from Tesla about like
Yeah.
building the engines in a more assembly line style way. Right. But you could imagine that if Lockheed and Boeing did that, that would also get the cost down probably. But
Well, SLS has got the some things that, I mean, not to the extent of the reusability like SpaceX does reusability, but they have they're reusing some of the boosters, right? Of course, they have to redo and refurbish them and everything, but they're using some of the shuttle boosters. Right, and the boosters themselves, the solid rocket boosters, exactly. Yeah.
I think that's what I'm remembering though, is like the process for making one of those solid rocket boosters. It's like incredibly hard and expensive just to make one. Like
SLS is solid rockets booster.
Well, it's got
as
two.
an assist.
Yeah, it's got two solid on the side, like the
Oh,
shells used to have. Yes, right.
oh, I thought they were unsafe. They solid. I don't really know them. I'm not expert.
That's it. Legit. Yeah, expendable.
I mean, it's kind of a simple idea, the solid rocket booster. It's kind of like building a firework or something, right? But but get actually not to blow up on you. I think it's probably just because they're so big. You have to build them in pieces, and then you have to not let them blow up when you try to stick them together.
Yeah, but boosters are used by ULA as well. I mean, you know, it's the boosters technology, I guess, if you want, is used by ULA, right, as well.
Well,
We have,
if you've ever played Kerbal, you know how if you need to get something into space, just stick on more SRBs in there.
like they got those exaggerated on Kerbal, these exaggerated rockets with what 32,
30 layers of solid rocket boosters.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Right. You get rid of all that weight. Yeah, you get rid of that weight and everything. You just use it.
And the liquids have the benefit of it's basically the same technology that people use for ICBMs. So, oh, were there? The fuel you have to take. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's by design. It's like the simplest possible liquid fuel system, right? It's methane and oxygen, but have you guys ever read this book, Boom? It's about working some chemical and some guy who worked for Rocketdyne probably in the 50s and 60s in the So it was like his job to test new hypergolic propellants, which are like, you snap your fingers and they'll start to blow up. It's a really risky job to have, but it's a pretty interesting book. It's very amusing. I recommend it. Like,
Don't you? Yeah, the hypergolic is used for ICS, that's right. Reaction control systems, they use hypergolics. Like hydrogen. Yeah. Yeah, for altitude corrections, right? For orbital correction and that kind of stuff. That's only for the circularization, not for further. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Do you have the other fuel or other sort of reaction control system to be able to maintain orbit? Okay. Mm, okay. Mm.
so it's not really. But don't they have like really high what's called ISP, the like specific impulse?
Specific impulse. Yeah. That's what I have an engine allowed the Dawn spacecraft to go from what, Vesta to Sirius or vice versa. You went. Yeah.
Oh, so that's what I was saying. So the ion engines, they have very high specific impulse, but very low thrust. So you have to spend
Yes.
forever accelerating, right? Yeah. But so the monoprop, that's sort of a predecessor to the ion thruster technology. And that is a chemical reaction, or? And then there's some hydrogen or something is the exhaust. Uh-huh.
Right.
So if you look at one of the recent episodes of Event Horizon, which is a podcast on YouTube by Jean-Michel Gaultier, he had a guest on who was a gal who's really a theoretical astrophysicist studying the sun and so forth. And they were looking at the flares on the sun that were discovered recently that heat up the outer area. And she figured out a way to use that highly magnetic plasma process to make an enhanced version of ion engine. And she wrote it up and got it published recently, and it looks pretty promising. It's not clear, that what exactly the use case is for that technology, but it looks to have a lot higher thrust potential, and it's using it's kind of derived from the same kind of magnetic bottle technology they use for tokamaks and what have you. So definitely worth looking at it. Mhm.
So you could you ever use that to do a very long, slow coast for a Mars lander second stage? It'd be like 4 years or something instead of 3 months. Yeah.
That depends. That depends on if you have the time to wait for the right window.
Yeah, yeah. The windows for Mars are what, annual?
So-
They're about
18 months.
roughly every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
That's it?
Roughly.
You want to get on. You want to get on the other side of the sun. But it's all depending on the purpose and the scope, right? What are you trying to, where you want to go, and how long? If you don't care about how long it takes you, right? And on the war, right? But if you got constraints like human cargo, for instance, and you know that, yeah. What about here? Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's what I mean. You have to look at you have to look at what is what are your ultimate goals, right? Your constraints are going to be dictated by what your goals in terms of cargo, in terms of timelines and space weather. If it's one of the constraint could be right as well. There's a lot of different. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's like the first one.
Oh, it's not too much worse than living in Texas.
Especially 2021.
Let me ask you a question about this Antares rocket that was used to resupply the space station recently. The thing that I found out about that recently that I don't quite understand, but they apparently don't have to throttle down for max Q. Is that just a matter of they've right sized the rocket so that they, I was amazed to find that out.
I guess they can. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to answer. Paul, I'm sure, knows more. It might be a pressure. Yeah, it's going to crush. It could crush depends on the material, I guess.
So they have to throttle down then. So basically the savings you get from not having to throttle down is pretty insignificant. I mean, it certainly sounds like it.
All right.
Oh no, I know it's not, but I'm just
So, right. I was going to say, here's the quote from Spaceflight Now. On the last 5 flights with what we call the 230 configuration, we throttled down and max Q for about 18 to 20 seconds. And starting with the NG12, which I don't know when NG12 was. What is the article from here? It's from 2019.
I think that's 19, yeah.
Yes, it says for starting from NG12, we were going to plan to fly at 100% throttle settings, like you said, throughout the first stage burn until we hit the max G force limit. And then we throttle down at that point. And they said that the high throttle setting, it was possible thanks to modification to strengthen the Antares rocket first stage structure, which is made by Yuzhmash in Ukraine, as Paul was mentioning. So I guess the structure it was able to sustain that the force pressure.
It was less about the rocket and more about just beefing up the
the
spacecraft. Okay.
The spacecraft, yes. Apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you think about the extra material that is required. That's all extra cost, right? To have a thicker, maybe structure frame. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
No, actually, they put more stuff in orbit this time than ever before. So
The load.
yeah, I mean, we're talking like 4,000 kilograms max, but
Yeah, envelops.
Cool.
I haven't figured out why the Soyuz is able to perform the rendezvous in a matter of they got a short trajectory rendezvous now to the space station. They can get that there in mere few hours, and it doesn't seem to have been adopted yet by the NASA launches, whether it's of the cargos, the Dragon cargos, or even I guess the cargos more recent history, because
I did find an article about that whole thing.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the details. So, but if you do a little Google searching, you'll probably find that same
Okay.
article, because it
I
went through in some detail. I mean, there's
Is that
Paul's
the
point
reason?
about the trade-offs.
Right. Yeah, because I've been wondering about. But they've refined the trajectory to almost to to an extreme amount of precision. I mean, like they can just get there really. I mean, I understand it's a different starting point.
I think actually it part of it has to do with the planning for escape from an emergency.
Huh.
So if you have people on board and you want to make sure you have an escape system that'll land somewhere safe, particularly if they're launching from the East Coast, that to make that system work, you have to forego the extremely fast direct route.
Right, direct route. I don't know. I was
interesting.
wondering why they didn't necessarily adopt, that. But it looks like the Soyuz are more and more.
The Soyuz had some reason to want to do it that way, because the alternative was they needed to upgrade their capsule to be more comfortable for the astronauts, because there was getting to be a problem with just enduring the extremely cramped quarters for the extended flight. So they had an actual reason to want to go much faster, because they don't have to upgrade their capsule design.
That one makes sense.
And the U.S. is, especially if you look at Dragon, is kind of going the other way. It's like Dragon's going to be like aren't like tourists going up in it. It's like it's going to be pretty comfortable.
Next bump, right?
Yeah. I don't think they'll have stewardesses yet, but
interesting. There was this article about the toilet on the Dragon. It looks like they placed the toilet in this. I didn't even know the Dragon had a toilet, but I guess they got the toilet and up in the ceiling. Well, if you want to call it the ceiling, I guess.
One thing I remember when I saw the Dragon go up the first time, I remember they kind of scared me, was that they don't have a lot of controls. If you actually see it, it's just this little touch screen.
You mean when the first human one went up?
Yeah. When I saw the people,
crew demo one, yes.
Yeah, I remember. I work on this kind of field, and I remember just thinking in that, like, wow, a touch screen, that's your life. It's
well, to the best of my understanding, they are it's completely just about completely automated, the entire journey.
I know. I just
it's just almost completely automated. It's just that they have obviously some contingencies and some control as well for the shuttle as well. Well, of course, for the shuttle was the landing stage, right? Obviously, you need the pilot to land.
I can empathize with our automation engineer here, though. I mean, software could screw up in big ways.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at Lockheed. I'm sorry if I told you this story before, but they had one of their fighters that was very close to going up for first human flights, and they were putting it through its paces on the simulator some more. And somebody had the bright idea of, hey, well, let's just go ahead and navigate the globe, because let's make sure we can get everywhere. And the moment they flew the simulation across the equator into the southern part of the Earth, the avionics flipped the plane so it was flying upside down.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would have been.
That would not have been good.
It was a real.
Going back to like what Paul Carl said earlier with a single point of failure, I mean, I understood the logic of using like one little HMI instead of using the way that, you know, the shuttle went up with all these racks of buttons
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. The idea is, you know, one component, less chance of failure. It's just, you know, it's just the way
Sure.
these systems are. But there's like a weird trade-off is that when something does go wrong, the systems that have less parts are harder to debug. There's generally that's weird trade-off between the two.
Well, I guess there's also the argument. I don't know if this is kind of what you're saying, but there's also the argument to your point, Isiah, that if you have everything on a screen, right?
Yeah.
Instead of multiple, gauges, you know, the screen. If the screen goes out, it's out, right? So
Yeah.
now
Well,
all of a sudden you don't have anything at all.
It wasn't. It was. They have one. They had two. I
Well,
thought I saw two.
Yeah,
And-
they do have two screens. I think that they are
Yeah,
the same.
it
You
was
know,
just-
they can do the same things.
Yeah. I mean,
So I say you have some redundancy, I suppose, but it's still a lot of stuff in one screen. But you same
Yeah.
with aircrafts nowadays. They got the glass cockpits, right? So
Yeah.
more and more you have everything on one screen, and you can cycle through different screens on
Yeah.
one physical screen.
one
So
ship.
If you have a
I
screen
helped.
failure, now all of a sudden you don't have the altimeter, you don't have the
Yeah.
fuel gauge, you don't have anything anymore. If you
Yeah.
screen failure, you don't have anything.
I one ship
Visually.
I installed equipment on. They lost. We lost a screen in the main engine control room, but we had a local mounted one on the
Right.
on our system.
Mhm.
So I worked with them to ram.
You muted yourself. Isiah, you muted yourself. No, I think some. Oh, and maybe
lost
he
him.
had issues with the. You need to wrap soon, and I guess we didn't get. Sam's going. Yeah, I was supposed to barbecue tonight, but I told my wife, I'm like, maybe I should do. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I can postpone my barbecue. There you
Yeah, that was my family.
Do you
actually.
work with SCADA? Is that called SCADA? I say, yeah, you work with SCADA systems?
Yeah, SCADA system.
Yeah, because I was a while ago, I looked a lot into a SCADA. It's a very fascinating field. Industrial controls,
Yeah,
right? That's really very fascinating. I like that stuff. I was looking into it, and I like controls, right? Digital controls a lot. So that's really a fascinating field.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you don't get any Europeans here anyway, so right. We need to get some representative of the opposite sex sometimes. What about Daniela? Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right.
Gray haired.
Exactly. Gray beards and gray hair. Well, I say yes, younger though. At least
Nice meeting you guys.
Thanks for coming by. I say, it was nice to see
Nice
you.
meeting
Hey, Rock, good to see you as well.
Yeah, it's fun, guys. See you
Hopefully
later.
you get a little bit of a break from the eyes, you know.
Wow.
It's nice. It's nice out now. See you guys later.
All right, bye. Have a good night.